I'm gonna get straight to the point. Do not wear NSFW avatars or anything with NSFW materials on yourself when you go into a public session. This also counts for if you're hosting a public session. I am going to tell you why you should not do that, and in fact, it is very illegal for you to do that. First of all, and also, at the end of the tutorial, I will tell you how to make your avatar safe for work or public sessions. Okay, so first of all, let's go over the Resonite TOS. Now, there are a couple of very specific spots in the Resonite TOS I'd like to go over. Now, I did some note making. So first of all, the services are intended for users who are at least 16 years of age. All users who are minors in the jurisdiction in which they reside, generally under the age of 18, must have permission of their parent or guardian to use the services. If you are a minor, you must have your parent or guardian read and agree to these legal terms prior to you using the services. So, basically, if you are a minor, get your parents' permission to use Resonite. And also, basically, minors can use Resonite. There are minors on Resonite. So if you're hosting a public world that is available for the public to join, that means it is available for minors to join. Now, this also includes if the minors themselves are hosting a public session. So if a minor is hosting a public session, they are hosting the session, as anyone does, on their personal computer at home. Now, a lot of people try to argue, well, I can have NSFW stuff on my avatar, and they think that they can because they can hide it or something like that. Now, this is not the case. This is not VR chat that have separate servers with other things. This platform does things a little bit differently. So I want to describe assets. Now, in every single world that is hosted on a PC, there's going to be an assets folder. Now, when you delete something out of the world, the assets from that item, such as the meshes, materials, textures, all of that kind of stuff, are going to be put into the assets folder of the world. So they're not going to be hard deleted unless you very specifically go through the assets folder and hard delete them. Now, I'm going to show you what an assets folder looks like. Now, opening up the assets folder in an inspector is usually going to lag you out hard or crash you because there are usually a lot of assets. If there's not a lot of assets, there's a chance that it might not. So right now I'm in on the Resonite, Metaverse Academia campus specifically. And we sort of have a lot of assets in here. So I believe it is on a auto delete though. So there's 94 assets. Let me open the folder. And I didn't really like that much, thankfully. However, sometimes you might like or crash. But you can see that there are some, well, almost all of these are labeled as assets. But a lot of these things are assets from things that have already been deleted, such as this 2D or 2.5D avatar generator made by Red Dragon. Very good tool. Thank you, Red Dragon. But that has been deleted since the last time this place has been opened, and it is no longer in the world visually. Can't interact with it, anything like that. However, it is still in the assets folder because it wasn't deleted. All right. So now that you know the assets folder exists, these assets, whenever anybody loads into this world, are going to be saved to their PC locally. That means that the assets from that 2D avatar creator are going to be saved. For example, say I am coming into this world for the first time, and I load in, and I also load all of these assets. Now, when you load assets in Resonite from any world that you go to, they are going to be saved to your computer locally in your cache. Now, let's see, I believe... Yeah, so this is where your cache is located on your computer. And you can also access this information via the Resonite Wikipedia, because often people will have to clear their cache if, there are some technical issues going on and there's nothing left they can do. But my point is, those meshes, materials, textures, everything from that 2D avatar maker is now saved in my cache. This also applies if, for example, a miner is hosting a public session, and then excuse me, Bbot, goodness. This also applies if a miner is hosting a public session, and if someone from the public wearing anything on their avatar that has to do with not safe for work materials, this includes textures, materials, slot names, and also visuals, meshes, then anything like that will get saved to the host's computer. So I gathered some resources here. Now, if I have this avatar, this is a safe for work avatar, first of all. It's free on Booth, or maybe it was Gumroad, but it's free. And it's safe for work. And so if you look in the armature, all of these are named, very non-NSFW things. These slots are named very normal names. Now, if I had slots in here, like for example, under the chest, that had to do with breasts, or anything underneath the hips that had to do with butt, or anything like that, then that would be considered an NSFW slot. That would be considered not safe for work. And there are actually tools that users use on Resonite that will filter out avatars and people joining based on the names of these slots. So if it detects those slots on your avatar, it will automatically kick you out of the avatar for the sake of the miners that could be in that session. So I recommend making sure that your safe for work avatar has your slots properly named. And also the mesh. So within your hierarchy, you're going to have meshes. Normally they'll be underneath your root node, centered root. Now this one just has a body, but sometimes, for example, you'll have other meshes, and those could include, other clothing materials, accessories, things like that. Sometimes there will be like NSFW body or some sort of NSFW parts. And meshes are represented component-wise like this. It is some sort of static mesh or skinned mesh render is usually how they're rendered. And you can pull them out and see them in this orb. Now, if the meshes on your avatar are NSFW in any way, even if they are turned off visually, the component is still on there. The component will still be saved to the assets of the world, and therefore to the miner's PC locally, their own PC. This means if you load into a public world, whether it's hosted by the miner or not, even if they're just a miner in there, then you are non-consensually giving this miner pornography. And that is illegal. And let me tell you why. So, back to the Resonite TOS, there is a very specific spot about your contributions, and this includes any sort of materials that you bring into the game. Now, there's specifically this one down here. Your contributions do not violate any applicable law concerning child pornography or otherwise intended to protect the health or well-being of minors. This is Resonite saying, do not give pornography to minors in any way. And all of this about NSFW avatars, NSFW materials, textures, anything like that is included. I would also like to point out Article 34 of the United Nations Human Rights. You can find it on this website. I will read it out loud. States parties undertake to protect the child from all forms of sexual exploitation and sexual abuse. For these purposes, states parties shall, in particular, take all appropriate national, bilateral, and multilateral measures to prevent a. The inducement or coercion of a child to engage in any unlawful sexual activity. B. The exploitative use of children in prostitution or other unlawful sexual practices. C. The exploitative use of children in pornographic performances and materials. Pay attention to that last one, especially. Another thing I would like to point out, and this is especially for the United States citizens, because it is the Congress.gov bill for the federal government. Child Pornography Prevention Act of 1996. Now, there's a lot here. I would recommend going to this site and reading it, or just pausing and reading it now. I would like to especially go over this one, number 2. Depicting the sexual exploitation of minors, including knowingly mailing or transporting or shipping in interstate or foreign commerce, included by computer, any visual depiction created, adapted, or modified to appear that an identifiable minor is engaged in sexually explicit content. So, that means if you are going into a public space where there could be minors with any sort of NSFW material on you, you are knowingly risking and putting NSFW pornography on minors' computers. That is illegal. I do not know how many times I have to tell people this. So please take all this to heart. All right. Now that I have made all of that very clear, I would like to specifically go over a few different methods that you can use to make your avatar safe for work. Say you're coming over from a platform that will normally allow you to have these things hidden, and somehow the platform can make it so these things aren't downloaded to people's computers. So if you're coming over from a platform like that, and you need to somehow make your avatar safe for work because you don't have a safe for work version, there's several different things that you can do. First and foremost, I recommend reaching out to the person you bought the avatar from. If you bought the avatar, instead of made it yourself, and asking if they have a safe for work version. Make sure to include textures and things like that. So if you have an avatar and you would like to make it safe for work, then there are a few things that you need to do, and I'll bring this back. So number 1, make sure that all of the meshes on your avatar are safe for work. So if you have any geometry that is NSFW, such as nipples on the breasts or any sort of genitalia, then go into Blender and delete those vertices, delete those faces, and get rid of any of the geometry that looks like NSFW material. Secondly, go through your hierarchy and make sure that you do not have any sort of NSFW systems or names or materials or context menu items or anything on that avatar that you're planning to wear in public. Also, make sure to look through all of your materials, because you could find other textures on there, and they might not necessarily be on the body. They could be sort of randomly on other meshes, other skin mesh renderers. So go through all of your materials and make sure that all of your textures are safe for work. Now, you also need to make the textures safe for work. So I provided an example. Now, this is a humanoid texture, and normally it has not safe for work parts to the texture. Now, what I did is very simple. I opened it up in MS Paint. You could open it in MS Paint. You could open it in Photoshop. Anything that allows you to draw over. In fact, I believe that Windows and Mac usually has some sort of generic paint program. So just open it up in that, and then draw over those parts that could be labeled as NSFW. I used a white marker. You could always use a black marker. But as long as those parts are covered, it could be considered safe for work. All right, and then make sure that you have all of this in place, and perhaps check with a friend and say, like, do you think, is this avatar truly safe for work? You can always contact a moderator or anybody who works with avatars normally in Resonite and is willing to help. There's also mentors. You can always ask mentors as well. But I believe that this is information that a lot of people ask about, and a lot of people don't exactly know how to explain or don't exactly want to listen to it. I know that NSFW parts of an avatar could be very personal to someone and they could identify with it a lot. However, you need to respect laws, you need to respect rules, and you need to respect other people's comfort, especially minors who are playing. I know many of them that play on Resonite. Minors come to the workshops to learn things. Minors go to Creator Jam. Minors go to the costume contests and all sorts of other Resonite events. Now, if you would like to do any sort of NSFW actions or wear anything like that, then do so in a private session. Now, I would like to explain specifically the difference between a public session and a hidden session. So, now that I've described exactly what is allowed and how you might be able to make your avatar safe for work, I would also like to explain that, so if you have a session open and it is set to private, because as you know, and I will take a picture of this. Okay, so as you know, these are different settings that you can have for your world. Now, if the world is set to private, this invite only, then it is okay to do whatever you would like, as long as you do not invite minors. Now, if you would like to, say, host some sort of adults-only party, and you want people to be able to join, say, from a Discord server that you have some sort of ID verification on, and you know that there aren't any minors or anything that can join, then there is also this button down here, Don't Show in Session Lists. Now, the Don't Show in Session Lists, it makes a session hidden. So, for example, if I had Don't Show in Session Lists on, and I had it set as Contacts Plus, that means that it would be a hidden Contacts Plus. And this means that if, say, I am in there, and nobody will be able to join because it's hidden, however, I can still invite anybody that I want. Now, if I invite a friend, then people still can't join on me or my friend. However, my friend can invite a different friend that I am not contacts with, and that is how it is Contacts Plus, but it is still invite only. So, you still want to be really careful when it comes to hidden worlds, because you need to make sure that everybody in that world is verified, and the people that they invite will be verified. I will almost always suggest to people be on private invite only. And if this don't show in session lists is checked off, and this isn't anything other than private, do not have anything NSFW in the world whatsoever. Otherwise, you will be breaking laws. And I'm not just talking about Resonite TOS. I'm talking about everything that I was talking about before. All right. So I think that pretty much covers it. Yeah. And if you have any other questions, then please feel free to make a comment on this video, or you can contact me on Discord, .missmolly. I run Metaverse Academia. Feel free to send in a message to any of the Resonite moderators as well. I'm sure they can answer any questions. And thank you for listening.